welcome to miYOGA. My name is Tracy Garcia, and this is your yoga practice in your home. Thank you for joining me today. Bring out your yoga blocks and maybe a half roller or a full roller. We'll be using them in today's practice. Our flow today is called domes and arches. So what does that mean? Well, if we were shaped like Frankenstein and had boxed heads or maybe box-shaped hips or box-shaped, even worse, box-shaped feet, it would be very hard to move and groove. But we have this arch support, and in our feet, in our knees, in our pelvic floor, even in our diaphragm, in the top of roof of our mouth, our head, with this roundedness, our cells can communicate, and our organs of our connective tissue can communicate even that much better with having this rounded element versus this square element. So I hope we're going to have fun with this flow, and get your bodies to be moving and grooving all day long. So let's come onto our hands. Let's notice and honor what we have in our hands and in that support of our hands. So bringing it into quadruped, we are just closing our eyes, and I want you to notice if you tense your fingers, meaning that your fingers are kind of cupping like a rainforest tree frog, if you have space underneath your hands, and hopefully you do. Do you have more space in one side than the other, or is it pretty even Steven? So let's get the tissue to be prepared. I want you to bring the hands together and maybe coax the thumb pad, maybe pull back on that thumb pad, pull the fingers, twist the flesh around the bone, pulling back, just stimulating the tissue, any bundles of tissue that feel like it needs a little bit more love. I want you to hang out a little longer on that, maybe create a compression into that area and move the head maybe side to side, maybe your wrist is in motion, whatever feels good, wherever's going to kind of take those bundles of tissue and allow it to become more elastin-like with more fluid exchange into the layers of that tissue. I'm going to bring my hands together again and stimulate my thumb pad, pull back on that thumb, especially if you have some areas in your forearms, in your elbows, maybe even in your shoulder that need more love. Kind of tune into where and how your hands feel, and if there's any tenderness in any of those areas of your hands. Could be a gateway of change to someplace else. If you take care of your hands, I'm going to stimulate the flesh of my forearm. Sometimes this is a place that congestion gets in there, so maybe I'm giving a little love to it and flipping my palm up and flipping my palm down, but isolating movement just in that forearm. And give it a little friction, a little love, quick, soft movements, and then come onto the forearm, come onto the hands and lean forward into the forearms, and notice if you have a little bit easier of a time to wait there. Maybe if you close your eyes, you actually feel a lot more of your fingertips and less of your palm. Let's come to rest on our back. And before we get started, let's honor what we feel in our bodies as we come into Savasana. And close your eyes, take some focused breaths. And if you're having difficulty getting on the floor, well, that's an assessment in Savasana that you might want to acknowledge. Let's focus on your hips. How do your hips feel? And do you feel the weight more on your tailbone, or is the weight more on those butt cheeks? Feel the breath rise from the belly, expanding the space of the ribs. And exhale, make your sound. Kind of get the connection of your center. How does your diaphragm move it and groove it by figuring where your shoulders are at and figuring out where your hips are at. And I want you to bend at your knees. And I'm going to use the half roller. The roller I'm using is from Melt. I love their products. So I'm gently positioning this underneath with the round side down, flat side up. And I am bringing my hands to the top of my pelvis and taking that breath, getting everything to be felt on top of the roller. And I'm motioning my hips towards me and then away from me. I'm just giving this a nice rock. And notice as you rock it forward, where your tail is moving away from you on the opposite side of the roller, can you sense this low back space? And I want you to kind of give some love to that low back space as you bring your hands, your knuckles, just to give it some compression and movement. And we are noticing their footprints. I want you to close your eyes and bring your hands to a relaxed position. And as you close your eyes, can you check into your footprints here? Can you check into maybe one foot positioned to the floor more so than the other? Do you feel like more of a dome of support from one foot to the other? Take a breath, and wherever you do, we're going to bring the knees to a tabletop position. And I want you to practice external rotation with your legs, meaning like a frog position, to internal rotation. And hold that external rotation. Reset anything that feels better for your support to be underneath your hips. And I want you to come into Happy Baby. And with Happy Baby, you're making your sound, and your hips are moving down. So they're moving on the opposite side of the roller. See if you can either hang on to your knees to bring your hips to move it to that anterior tilted position. And then make your sound. See if you can come to a place where maybe you're working with one foot, maybe a figure four, but your hips are still on the opposite side of the roller. And right in the center of your foot, I want you to stimulate that arch of support. I am using compression and movement as I squeeze my toes and open them up, spreading the toes apart, and maybe kind of coaxing the tissue into the balls of my foot, maybe into the heel, maybe onto the outside. Do what feels good. Anywhere that the tissue feels a little bit more bundled, give it some extra love. I'm separating my toes, especially even that pinky toe, to be able to get some movement into that little pinky toe, and then small soft touches just like the hand. Give that a little stimulation. And we're switching sides. So I'm using that Happy Baby. My hips are moving away from me. I'm feeling this lift of my low back. My heart is open. I'm crossing my ankle onto the opposite side. If it's easier resting your foot down, go by all means do that. If you're a little bundled into the hip, maybe use your footprint into the floor and energetically push it away so you can feel that relationship all the way up into the spinal erectors and stimulate the arch of your foot. Squeezing the toes, getting a little compression in the center of your foot. Maybe your foot needs a little bit more love around that big toe. Love that big toe. It's big papa. It's a lot of hip stability, and we will definitely need to find our stability today. But have no fear with having some arch support into our feet. We're going to have a better communication all the way up that line into your hips. So give that some love, separating the toes. You know, if your foot is still not reaching, here's another way. You know, use a block to lift it up, but your hips, again, are not in a tuck position. So we're going to come out of that position. I want you to plant both feet back to the floor. And use that focused breath. Press both those heels away. Get an arch into your low back space, but feel your core activate. Narrow the knees, press your heels energetically away. All 10 toes are imprinted. Maybe I'm using my footprints to gently lift up. I'm going to bring the roller away, but keep it in anterior tilt. Energetically push, narrow the knee. Feel the upper fibers of hamstrings and glutes. Maybe tenting the fingers, letting the heart lead the way. Taking the focused breaths. We're hanging out for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and we're dropping the hip. And then notice your footprints here. Sliding out the legs. Notice if your hips are rested any more differently on the floor. Hopefully you're not on your tailbone. Hopefully you're in the sitting bones. Those are the structures on the landmark portion of the back of your hips. So let's get this party started. And we are going to put some of these ideas in a flow that enhances the way your body communicates together as one. So let's do it. We're going to start in a quadruped position. I'm tucking my toes under. Whether you choose to use blocks or not, I'm still tenting my fingers. Pulling the collarbones to widen into the shoulders, finding that cow, and using the weight bearer into my hands to start tucking the tailbone under, finding that breath, rounding the spine, chin comes down to the throat, use that breath to broaden the collarbones, bringing it into cow and then the hips. And one more time, I'll do it on the side as I tuck my tail under. I'm segmentally controlling the spaces of my vertebra. And then as I go back, separating body parts. Hover the knees, make your sound, pull your fingertips back and see if you can enhance the way your core feels here, your center of your body. Where is that source? Hips lift up first, down dog, pedal at the heels, and gently stepping to the top of your mat. Come into Utkatasana. Hips are back, arms are reaching. And then I want you to squeeze the toes, feel the dome of support, and maybe lifting up your heels and then dropping them. Maybe lifting up your heels, using the block maybe, and dropping them. And finally lifting up your heels and maybe coming to keep your heels lifted as you come to a standing tall position. Relax the heels, float those arms down to the floor. Left foot steps back, drop the knees, but not the toe. Arms reach up, hook those thumbs, add that reach, but keep the suppleness of the low back space as you take a bow. Chest moves forward, hips move back. Let's hook those thumbs, maybe another way. Add that reach, feel the suppleness of that low back space. And exhale, take a bow. Hands plant to the floor, to the blocks. Hips lift up first. Right foot steps back in the plank. Find that breath. Drop the knees and tops of the toes. Heart leads the way. Baby cobra. Find the fingertips here. Keep the arch support underneath the palms as your triceps are active and wrapping towards your body. Find that breath. Hips lift up first. Coming into quadruped, maybe plank, and then down dog. Wrapping those triceps, left foot lifts. I'm going to use blocks for this. As I step forward, I'm really lifting into my center of gravity. Hook those thumbs, reach it long overhead, and then take a bow. Let the hips go one way, heart center leads the other. Maybe hooking the thumbs the opposite. Add that reach, add that length. Feel the timing as your hips move back. Spine lengthens, chest moves forward. Hands plant to the floor, and the hips lift up. Step that right foot to meet the left. Come into Utkatasana. And then standing tall, standing proud. Add that reach. Exhale, fold forward, opposite side. Hands plant. Right foot steps back. Drop the right knee and the top of the foot. See if you can go post those elbows and move into those ribs. Can we turn from side to side? Do we have that availability to turn from one side to the other, but keeping the hips nice and stable? Back to center, hands plant to the floor, to the blocks. Hips lift up first, left foot steps back in plank. Drop the knees and the tops of the toes. Heart leads the way, baby cobra. Pull those fingertips back. Use that breath. Maybe this time, I want you to circle the head first one direction. Keep that active action into those palms. Even that index finger is pressing down into the floor. Hips lift up, find that strength, plank, down dog, pedal out the heels. Right foot lifts up, stepping forward, dropping the left knee and the top of the toe. Add those goalpost elbows. And add that rotation of the ribs, opening up the fingers, really spreading the fingers. And this time, as we come forward, I want you to hook the outside of the arm to the outside of the thigh, and I want you to press the fingertips together as you're feeling that shoulder and being invited down the back body, and then close the palms, but still keep the space of the palms, tucking the toe under, and we're unloading the knee. See if the hips lift up first, and then maybe dropping the knee, and open up the arms. See if you can maintain that connection to your core, adding that twisted prayer, 90-90. Lunge here, lift up the hips, And one more time, drop the hips. Add that openness. That connection to your breath. We're going to lift up that knee, hold that knee lifted, and let's welcome those crescent lunge. Hook those thumbs as you reach overhead. And exhale. Let's lower the knee, interlace the fingers behind the body, roll the shoulders back. Let's just lift and lower. Feel that front heel energetically pushing away. So feel that footprint into the floor. Activate those lower fibers of glutes, upper fibers of hamstrings, and we're floating into airplane. Let the heart lead the way. And then coming into a standing, tall, balanced position. Maybe bending at the knee, flexing at the ankle. Give me those goalpost elbows. If this doesn't feel right for you, you can always just activate the bowl mound of the foot. We're adding rotation or rotation. And this time, as we add rotation, have to have low back space, and then use that opposition against the outside of the thigh and reach to the back of the room. Keep that lateral hip action happily working together as one. And then finally, bring that foot down. Arms reach overhead. Exhale, fold forward. Step that right foot back. Drop the knee, but not the toe. Reaching those arms overhead. And as we reach, kind of figuring it out, add that rotation. Use that opposition. Cup the fingers. Tip the tips of the fingers. And then opening it up. Add the palms, press through. And then add that rotation. Palms press through. Push that front heel away. Add that rotation. And hold that work. Use that opposition. If this doesn't feel right for you, you can always stay here into the front of your body. We're going to pick up the knees. Use that opposition and drop the knees. Pick up the hips, almost like we have a magic string coming from the tailbone and dropping. And this time as we lift on up, let's come into that crescent lunge. Hook those thumbs, reach overhead. Feel that connection to your core. Make your sound anytime you feel a little bit more wobble. It's okay to wobble, that's what we do in life. And add that reach, maybe coming into airplane. Find that balance. I'm gripping into the dome of my support to give amplification as to where things are at. Find that balance. Feel that low back space here. Add the source of stability into those lateral hips. And maybe I'm using a block to add rotation. Maybe I'm picking it up. Maybe I'm extending a leg. But whatever it is, do it with your center of gravity and your core. Shake it out. Nice job. Let's come onto the floor and supplement this and do a rooted core, or actually a rooted core shear, an inner glided shear, if you will. I'm going to rest my head on my bicep, and I'm bringing the roller first parallel, and then I'm angling it out away. I'm using the edginess of the lowest portion of the roller so it doesn't get caught up, and I'm pressing down to the bowl mound of my foot and just swirling it around. And as I push down, I want you to notice what happens to your hips and the lower portion of your low back space. Maybe I'm using a block since it's there. It's very important to notice, even in a lying down position, that timing and what happens when you're pushing down and that relationship all the way to your hips. Any bundles of tissue in there, linger a little longer, maybe just give it a little wiggle. Pick one more spot as we press it down, and then bend and extend into that knee. Don't forget to breathe. We're coming onto the inner portion of that knee again where we started, and this is going to charge up the fluid. This is a move that I learned through Mel, and I can't tell you how it does work. So we're coming onto our forearms, our chest is moving forward, and I want you to come up towards your pelvis and grip the fingers, push down into the floor. Feel your chest wall move forward, and then take a pause, take a breath. Inhale. Exhale, and we're switching sides. So come on down. Let's see if both sides are created equal. Slide it on down. Let your leg extend over. It's like a letter capital victory V. What I'm looking at, and I'm pushing down into the floor as I'm swirling it around. And maybe bend and extend that knee. And you're not just tucking under, and I want you to feel as you tuck under, maybe you're bringing your hips back and lift it. As you're pushing down, you're learning how to move and groove into those hips. Let's pick another spot. Swirl it around. And extend. So, if you feel like you have some alien heads living more on one side than the other, maybe you want a 2-for-1 special in that area, and really slow down into your yoga positions, and notice maybe to get the space in your lumbar spine. Maybe it's more space in your chest, but kind of use your breath as being an observer of where things are at. No judgment, just observe as to how your body is picking up communication from your foot to your hips. So I'm bringing the leg back to where I began, and I'm rinsing it up. So I'm rinsing it up, and I'm coming onto my forearms. I'm planting my footprints. I'm pulling my fingertips through, and then I'm going to exhale, taking that pause, and bringing it around. Let's keep moving. We're going to start into a quadruped position. I want you to notice as you tuck your tail under, gripping the fingers, maybe have a little bit more suction into your fingertips, rounding the spine, and then adding that extension into cow. Maybe your cat and cow is a little bit more cleaner. And where it might be a little sticky, linger a little longer on that. Hover the knees up, feel that core here, and come into down dog. Hips lift up first. We're going to walk those feet to the front of your mat. And I want your hands underneath. You're going into gorilla pose. I want your hands underneath. And I just want you to let it hang, let go. Wiggle left to right. And then I want you to lift up the hips as if you have an imaginary string coming from your tailbone. And keep bending your knee, maybe coming to where you're into hips moving forward, chest moving, moving back, chest moving forward, and then press more demand of your footprint here as you take more bend out of your knee. I'm coming out of gorilla, and I'm pressing into my feet, and I'm floating back into Tadasana, or my mountain pose, rolling the shoulders back. Notice how you're standing. If you were to close your eyes, feet are parallel from each other. Plant more energy into that right foot, reaching the right arm up, and then pressing. And use, as you're moving away from, you're getting more charge, more communication into that footprint. We're switching sides, putting more energy into that left footprint as the left arm reaches. As we're reaching, we're pressing down with more demand, more breath. Let's try that once from one side, pressing into that footprint. Don't let it go, and pressing into the other. Using that breath. Notice if your shoulder is over the hip, hip over knee, knee over ankle. Come up tall and standing. Interlace those fingers back. Rolling the shoulders down the back of the body. Chest is open. We're going to pick up that left foot, sliding on back. Feet are on two separate planes into warrior, and we are going into devotional warrior. I want you to cup the feet here. Feel the arch of support underneath the feet as you reach forward. The heart leads forward, but the chest moves back. And then use the footprints to push away to come to a standing warrior one position. This time, I want your right hand on your heart, and you're leaning forward, cupping that rainforest tree frog type of action in that back foot, and then maybe reaching overhead, pressing the footprints in. That reach, maybe bending at the elbow, getting some stretch into the tricep. And one more time, reaching it forward. Don't forget about that back footprint. Add that reach. And add that extension of your spine. Open it up. Take that breath. Both hands are going to plant to the floor or to your block. And you're unloading your right knee, and see if you can feel that breath. See if you can find that balance. Bend the knee, open up the hip, but put more energy into that left foot. Rebalance the hip, knee comes in, use that breath. Press down into the feet, and back down into the foot, press into the hands. Feel that connection, extending that leg back, bend the knee, open up the hip. I'm going to bring my hands off my blocks. And I'm rebalancing my hips. My right knee is going to plant a modified side plank as I maybe add that push of my ball of my foot, and just figure out if my glutes are firing as I push down. I have a low back space. Maybe I'm reaching for that instep. But you can practice tucking and tilting here. But I want you to be a more healthy neutral. Open up the chest, take that breath. A lot more challenge being on the top of the foot, but you can always tuck the toe under. We're going to take away the touch of the instep, and we're our left foot is going to come to plant to the front of our mat, half moon on the left side. So as I rise up, I'm flexing at my ankle. You can always use the wall too. As I'm reaching, I'm letting my collarbones move out to my shoulders. And I'm leading my body with my breath. And then nice and gently, I'm going to bend and extend that knee. And then finally, I'm going to bend my knee. And then here's the timing. As my foot touches down on Warrior Two, grip into the footprint, add that reverse. Pressing those feet away, adding that variation. Use more challenge to press down to lift up. And one more time, add that reach. And add that variation. Both hands are going to plant, and I want you to pivot on the ball of your back foot and opening up the front. You're using opposition on the inside of your knee, but as you gently press in, if this feels right for you, you're pushing down to lift up into the hip. And maybe dropping, the wrist is directly underneath your shoulder, down to lift up. And one more time, see if you feel a stretch in the left of the hip crest. And let's open it up. Press those footprints away into Goddess Squat. And we're dropping and lifting. Maybe trying to lift up onto those heels. And dropping and lifting. And dropping. And now interlace the fingers, tuck the tail under, reach those knees energetically away. And you should feel a little neuro quiver here. As your knees are reaching to the corners of the room, your hips are in that tucked position. And I just want you to maintain that hold. Let that vibrational neuro quiver wake a little something up. For 5, 4, 3, 2, we're dropping and lifting. Notice your footprints. Take those toes towards your heels. Keep that arch of support. Drop and lift with a little pause. Tucking under, drop and lift. A little pause. Try it one more. Drop and lift. And if it's still feeling good, give me 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pivot on that right ball of the foot. And let's check out our airplane. See if you can keep the interlaced fingers as you come up to lift. And maybe a little better. Bring that knee in. The booty goes back. The low back space is happening. Use that opposition. Maybe extending the leg. Maybe adding rotation. Maybe you're holding the bent knee. But whatever it is, do it without your shoulders. Come back to center. Shake it out. We have another side. How you doing? How's that feeling? Come onto your hands to plant. And bring the elbows to hands, hands to elbows. And taking some breaths. Let the heart lead the way. Yukatasana. Lead, arms are reaching, booty is back. Use those footprints. Take a bird's eye view of those feet. Notice if you have all 10 toes active into your mat, especially that big toe. Coming up tall, interlace the fingers behind the body. Invite those shoulder blades back and down. And this time, your right foot is stepping back. Feet are on 2 separate planes. Gripping the toes, finding that arch support underneath your foot. Let the heart lead the way as the booty goes back. And as you press those footprints away, see if it naturally lifts you up in a healthy position. Let's try it again. This time my left hand is on my heart and I'm reaching with my right, gripping my feet away, maybe a little vibration here, using the outer hip. I really press into the outside. I'm swirling my heel to the outside so my big toe is more present as I lift on up. Oh, especially on the sides that have those timing issues. Bring it through, add that reach. Really get that footprint imprinted. Lateral third of that heel is pressing down, like kind of swirling the heel outwards, so we're getting more relationship of communication up to the hip. Feel that stretch. Last time, hand on the heart, reach it. Heart is moving forward, booty is moving back, pressing down to lift up. Add that reach. And as we come on down, both hands are going to plant either to blocks or to the floor. We're going to unload that left foot and just see, maybe you're just staying here just to feel how that feels. And maybe you're going to bend the knee, open up the hip. Rebalance that hip, bring it on in. Make your sound, make your core push down to lift up. And then add that opening of the hip. One more time, rebalance the hip, knee comes in. Squeeze it, find it, make it happen. And as we plant that foot, we're coming into that swirling. My hand is planted, I'm just opening it out. And I'm swirling it out and back. See how that feels. Opening up the hip, bringing it into warrior two. Backing it up, reversing it. And adding that variation, reaching overhead, reaching it back, add that variation, swirling it out, add that reach, hands plant, add that reach, three-legged down dog, bend at the knee, open up the hip. Wrap those triceps, rebalance the hip, knee comes in. And send it on back, bend at the knee, open up the hip. And this time, as we rebalance the hip, that left knee is going to come into modified side plank. I'm going to plant my hand to the floor and push into the ball of your foot. See if you can get that glutes to fire and maybe unload, grip the fingers, make a dome of support into the hand. Maybe you're pushing into the ball of your foot, but practice that tilt and that tuck, gripping the fingers. I am active in serratus. And I'm gonna release my instep if you have it. The right foot steps forward to the front of your mat. I'm coming into half moon. I'm reaching and I'm unloading, flexing at the ankle. Grip my rainforest tree frog foot to feel its love and strength all into that side of the body. And then try to bend and extend the knee, keep the shoulder sliding back down the back, bending and extending. And this one, as we bend, we touch down and add that reverse warrior two. cup the back toes as you come into side lunge. Reaching overhead. Use your footprints to lift you on up. Reverse it. Shake out the neck. Any tension that might be living in there, let it go, let it go. Have that reach. And add that. Reverse, give it some breath. Breathing from your ribs. We're going to cartwheel that left hand to plant. I'm going to put a little bit of touch on the inside of my knee, but I'm pushing down to lift up my hip and then swirling it around. See what it feels like. Where I need that space, where I need that support. And then as we're reaching here, I want you to notice where you're at. We're going to come up into Crescent Lunge, maybe hooking the thumbs together, and we're going to slide on forward, check out your airplane. See if it might be a little more with ease, and then come to a standing tall position. Press down to let that heart shine its love, and then maybe add that rotation. We always have one side that's a little bit better than the other. My hip point is dropped. I don't want to lift here. I'm going to actually get some length between the space of my hip and my ribs, sticking the booty out, maybe extending, maybe adding that length. Use that breath. Make it captivate you. Make it the wind of your sail. And shake out those arms. You guys did awesome. Let's see where we're at with some support with the timing of our footprints to our hips. I'm going to use a block for this as I lift up and add that reach. See if I can keep my heels lifted. Having that, that breath. Let's see what your practice has done for you. And if it doesn't make you feel like your body is coming alive, don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to spread your wings as you settle those heels. Let's come down onto the floor. Nice job. Small sips of water throughout your day. The idea is consistency. Let's take our half roller and gently place it and position it underneath your hips. Notice your footprints. Add that reach. Make it the best stretch of the day. Maybe extend those legs out. Maybe this feels yummy. Move it side to side, and then as you slide your legs in, notice your external rotation. And marrying it into happy baby. Notice your internal rotation and how that is enhanced from your practice. Use the hands to touch your feet. And as we hook those thumbs, my hips are moving away from me. On the opposite side of the roller, as I maybe take some bend out of the knee, but keep the active entity of my shoulder blades pressing down, chest moving forward. And take some focused breaths here. I like to flex my ankles so my heels are being that reach to the corners energetically to the room. And finally bending your knees, tenting your fingers. I'm going to cross over. I'm going to start with my foot on the floor into this figure four, energetically pressing the heel away, but the hips are still not moving towards me. And reach those thumbs, add that deliciousness. And switching sides. I'm going to cross the ankle over, flexing at my ankle, press the heel away, honoring that low back space. Honoring your body, giving it some love. Let's come into Savasana. We are pressing the heels energetically away from us, using the press of the feet to lift our hips up, but not hoisting them under. And honor your Savasana as you're resting on the floor, palms face up, taking that breath. Feeling the rise and fall of your breath. And simply just be. Invite that breath in. And let that breath go. Nothing to do, nothing to focus on other than being here, right now. All is good. Take a minute just to be. Inhale, holding at the top, deepen your breath. Exhale, let that release. Wiggling the fingers and the toes. Letting that sensory of the fingers and toes connect to how your hips feel. Notice if you have any change in the suppleness of how your hips rest on the floor. Maybe perhaps being less off your tailbone and more onto your seat, being more equal from buttock to buttock. Rounding your ankles, rounding the wrists. Bending at your knees, maybe a little easier to bend the knees, maybe a little easier to bend the elbows. Give yourself a big hug as the knees cradle up towards the chest. Gently rolling off to your side. Take a pause here. And when you're able, move your body to your most comfortable seat. Hands pressed to your heart. Lengthen in your spine. Use that breath. And exhale, let it go. Let it out. Inhale, holding at the top. Exhale, let it go. Let it out, let it go. Inhale. And exhale. It's not just a practice, it's an experience to feel how our bodies are charged with sensing and touching through exploring. Thank you for being kindest to your own bodies today, as well as being kinder to all beings. Namaste. Thank you, thank you, thank you. With love in my heart and deepest gratitude to you and your home, have the best day ever. Thanks, guys. See you next time.